Chapter 2 covers basic SQL select statements or queries. Select statements are used to retrieve data from the database. And again, it's referred to as a query. Now, the word syntax means the structure or rules for writing a command statement. This is how you write it. You have to use the keywords or the reserved words, the command words, in a certain order with the names of your objects, the names of your columns or field names. Remember, columns and field names are synonymous, and the names of your tables. So the structure of your statement is the syntax. Okay? In a syntax diagram, as you look in the book at a syntax diagram, it's important to learn how to read a syntax diagram. Typically, the keywords or reserved words are written in all uppercase, and then the object names are in lowercase. But there's some other important things to know. That optional clauses and keywords, and I say clauses, is a statement is typically made up of one or more clauses. Now, a select statement is always made up of at least two clauses, and we'll get to that in a minute. But optional clauses and keywords are shown in brackets in the syntax diagram, these square brackets like we see here. Okay. Sometimes you have some keywords that you can use one or another keywords from some choices. If you see the vertical bars in between these keywords, that means they're mutually exclusive options. In other words, you can use one or the other, but you can't use more than one. That's what mutual exclusive means. Okay. On page 31 in your book, there's an example of a select statement syntax. Okay. This is that syntax diagram, okay, for a select statement. And look, it does look fairly complicated, but if you understand how to read a syntax diagram, then it becomes less complicated. For example, remember I said a select statement, all statements are made up of clauses. Select statement requires two clauses at the very least. The select clause and the from clause. Now, clauses begin with a key word. In this case, the select clause begins with the select keyword, and the from clause begins with the from keyword. Now, the select clause is from the keyword select all the way to here in this syntax diagram. And the from clause is from the from keyword till the last table name. Okay. Now, a select clause is where you select your columns, the column names or the field names. And the from clause is where you identify from which tables you're going to select these columns. Okay? Notice that there are several other clauses. Excuse me, before we get to the other clauses. In the select clause, notice the square brackets around the distinct and unique keywords. That means in your select clause, you can use the keyword distinct or unique. Notice the vertical bar in between distinct and unique. That vertical bar indicates, this vertical bar right here, indicates you can use distinct or unique. You can't use both. Down here we have the square brackets around as, and then an alias name. An alias, or in this case a column alias, is another name for the column heading in your output display. It doesn't actually rename the column. It renames the displayed column. Okay. Okay, now to the optional clauses. You can see there are several clauses here. The where clause, the group by clause, the having clause, and the order by clause. As we get further into the semester, into future chapters, we're going to get a little bit more complicated with our select statements, and we'll be discussing these clauses in more detail. Okay. The select and from clauses are required, as I've already noted. So in a select statement, you must have a select clause, you must have a from clause. Those other clauses are optional. Again, the select clause identifies the columns or field names. The from clause identifies the table or tables from which you're going to select the columns. Each clause begins with the keyword, as I've already noted, select keyword, the from keyword, etc. On page 32 in your textbook, there's a diagram that shows you how you can select all of the data from a table. You use the asterisk wildcard in your select clause. This example shows selecting all of the fields or all of the columns from the customer's table. Okay. If you wanted to select one column from a table, then you would put that column name in your select clause. In this example, we're selecting only the title column from the books table. And this diagram and this example is on page 33. You can select multiple columns from a table without selecting all the columns. If you want to select just a few of the columns, then you need to list those columns by name in your select clause and select the column name, separate the column names with a comma, as we see here. In this example, there's selecting the title column and then a comma and then the pub date column. Please keep in mind, these column names have to be spelled exactly the way they're spelled in the table itself.